Have you ever wished that you had more control over your life, over your time, over your schedule, and even over your money? Well, that's what I'm going to go over today and give you my experience on how I took control of my life. If it's your first time here, my name is Cambry. My husband Herbert and I are debt-free nomads. So I want you to picture this. You have 6 weeks that you're not going to be working. You only have a few $1,000s, if that, in your checking and or savings account. Your bills are still due. You still have to eat. You still have to put gas in your vehicle. That's a pretty scary scenario to be in. Now I want you to take all of those situations. You're not working in 6 weeks. You have a few $1,000s in your accounts, and your bills are still due. You still have to eat. But in that scenario, you're debt-free. Your bills are no more than a few hundred a month. Imagine the weight that just lifted off of your shoulders. You now have those 6 weeks to where you can be off and enjoy your time, because out of the few thousand that you may have in your account covers your bills and then some. What a breath of fresh air that is. 8 years ago, my husband and I chose to walk away from the rat race. We chose to live a more adventurous life. A life that we didn't know was going to lead to so much freedom, but we got more than we bargained for. And that's a good thing. So a little bit about my history. I was a single mother for 18 years. I have not always had a double income household. So I know what it feels like to live paycheck to paycheck, or the gut-wrenching feeling of losing your job. You can't even miss a week's worth of pay because it will put you that much further behind. So I understand, and I understand that feeling in your gut, that depressive hopelessness. I know exactly how that feels. Ever since we chose to work towards debt freedom, that knot in my stomach has all but completely disappeared. I don't dread getting up and going to work. I don't dread leaving a job if I need to. Whatever is best for my husband and I. So what I'd like to go over is the fact that freedom is not just about income. It is about your obligations. The less you need, the less money you will need. And that in and of itself makes you wealthy. Debt steals your time before it steals your money. Imagine a life to where you wake up every day and you get to decide what your day is going to be like. Now, I'm not saying every single day I have the ability to choose exactly what I want to do. However, I bet about 75% of my life I get to choose that every day. There are the times when we are working our seasonal job and, we have responsibilities within that job. However, we have flexibility within this position. and we can choose when we want to work, where we want to work. There are times that I maybe don't want to go on the road and I don't want to travel. And I can make that choice. My husband and I can make that choice between the two of us, whether or not we want to travel. And having such a low overhead in our personal budget creates the flexibility of when or how we choose to work. Now, we live this life below our means on purpose. With having that low overhead, we have the ability to make a choice. We can back off and not work as much in a season or a year, or we can choose to work quite a bit, and then we have that extra income to where we can either invest it, put it in our savings, or just blow it. We can do whatever we want because our overhead is so low. Now, one of the main things that we did is we have made it to where our monthly bills are very predictable, extremely predictable. For years, we paid about $180 a month for our 2 cell phone plans. And about 3 years ago, we switched over to Mint Mobile. And with Mint Mobile, I think we pay $30 a month. Yes, we pay $30 a month a piece for unlimited everything. And they use Verizon towers. So our phones work just about everywhere. Now, this isn't sponsored by Mint Mobile by any means. I will put a link in the description to my plan if you're interested in checking it out. You know, with those monthly bills, I have the majority of them set up on auto pay, and I don't really think about them. I have one or two that are fluctuating that I don't have on auto draft, but generally I just let everything come out. I don't have to think about it because I know that there's going to be enough money to cover the $300 or $400 I need a month. You know, the road to getting where we are was not necessarily easy. There were a lot of choices, hard choices that we had to make in order to get where we are today. We had to make the decision to walk away from careers. We had to make the decision to sell everything that we own. We made a conscientious decision to take minimum wage jobs in campgrounds. However, accepting those minimum wage jobs was perfectly fine because we didn't have rent, we didn't have electricity, we didn't have all of these things that are money suckers, if we're going to be honest. But going through all the preparation of saving ourselves all this money by cutting back expenses has absolutely been worth it. You know, right now we're off of work. Month and a half, 2 months, you know. It goes back to that 6 weeks that I was talking about in the beginning. I'm not stressed right now. You know, this big storm that's coming through, we don't have to worry about commuting in it or being worried about anything. We have everything we need because we have been prepared for a very long time because of the remoteness and the way that we live. I don't have to worry when this bad storm comes through because I don't need to drive to a job. I don't have to go to the grocery store. I have everything that my husband need. We have everything that we need right here. We'll hunker down and we'll keep warm and everything will be fine. So if you've ever thought about living a different life, you want to get out of that rat race, woo, you know, I always say you couldn't pay me enough, but I'm almost certain you couldn't pay me enough to go back to a regular 9 to 5. You know, cramming those 40 hours into a week after week after week. You couldn't pay me to do it. Honestly, I'm exhausted just thinking about it. So, at the end of the day, you know, if you're thinking about, is there another way to live, or at the very least, is there a way to cut these bills down? Cut these bills down so I'm not living paycheck to paycheck. You know, go ahead and subscribe. You know, let's have a conversation about it. Obviously, I've only taken a few minutes of your time here in this video, but there are so many more things that we can share, we can talk about. I'm not an expert by any means, but I am more than willing to share my information on what areas that, you know, we save money on, how we buckled down, how we paid our debt off, you know, what steps we took to get there. I am more than willing to have an open conversation about how that has happened. I think more people need to take control over their life. It doesn't have to be in the way that we did it, but freedom comes in really small wins, small victories. That credit card is paid off. Now you don't have to worry about it anymore. You got that car paid off. There's another $400 to $600, $700 a month in your pocket. Those small wins, we can make that happen. Thank you guys so much for joining me and listening to what I have to say. I really, really appreciate your time, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Let's have a conversation.